Okay, let's shift over to their Commonwealth Cup rivals. Virginia went 5-5 last season. Lots of COVID issues, as you hinted at earlier. We've tried to recalibrate our Bronco respect meter, tried to let all you Wahoos know that we do hold him in high regard. But I also have a question for you, Virginia fans. It's real hard to get spring football information because you're so daggum excited about basketball, and you're so daggum excited about your lacrosse team, and you're so daggum excited about your baseball squad that I'm like, where are the spring football updates? And I understand that you're the reigning national champions in basketball. Yes, I get it. But sometimes I do think that how often a program is talked about is a direct reflection to how much information is being shot out of the content cannon our way. And right now, it sure seems like resources around Virginia athletics are dispersed elsewhere. But we got boots on the ground. We got hands in the pot. We're still finding ways to do it. So we look at this, and number one, you got to start at the quarterback position, where you got to feel good about Brennan Armstrong. He wasn't healthy throughout the entire season, but I think that he's a really good quarterback for that offense, which I define now sort of like. We're looking, because we said Bryce, didn't we recklessly do the Bryce Perkins to Taysom Hill? Like, okay, the former BYU coach, now we've got the dual threat player. And now I can feel confident saying that Brennan Armstrong's able to do a lot of what Bryce Perkins was able to do, at least in being a real dual threat. The overall skill position talent, sometimes it's not going to wow you right away. And they really are going to rely on Armstrong to make things happen and things to sort of work within the flow of that offense. Defense loses a lot, especially at linebacker. We did mention Joey Blunt, a good defensive back and sort of real key for them. He's back as a super senior. So as we look at Virginia, they go from Coastal Division champs, playing in the Orange Bowl, 5-5 last year. What's sort of recalibrating the expectations as we look ahead to 21?
Well, I think, do we know how many starters we have back on the offensive line?
I don't have the number right now.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, because I was digging through that for myself, Chip, and I share the same kind of frustrations that you have with there not being nearly enough Virginia spring football content out there. But I think that is a key, because this was one of the best offensive lines in the country last year. Like, for all the flaws that this team kind of had and had to deal with at the quarterback spot, where it's starting a 45-year-old father of three for a while, the offensive line performed really, really well, and it kind of gave them a solid foundation. So depending on how much is there, I think that, again, you have a solid foundation for success and improvement. And I think that if you just look at their trajectory overall since Bronco got there, while they're not recruiting at an elite level, the recruiting classes have gradually improved. And we saw, the best player in their 2021 class, a 4-star offensive tackle out of Alexandria named Logan Taylor. I don't think he's going to be in a position to be starting right away, but you just see the talent and the foundation being laid there. And I think defensively, this team reminded me a lot of most Bronco Mendenhall defenses last year, with the one exception being that the secondary was not great. They had problems defending the pass. And some of that was COVID. Some of that was just poor play. And I think that we're going to need to see a significant step forward there in 2021. So those are going to be some interesting spots for me to keep an eye on, to see if this is a Virginia team that could maybe be a bit of a surprise in the division this year. I know we've talked about Miami and North Carolina being the top two teams and being the favorites. This is a Virginia team to me that I have, again, the question about
your beloved Hoos, man. You can't quit them.
My beloved Hoos. I love Bronco Mendenhall. I look at this team and I say, you know what? Bronco could take this team and surprise some people in 2021. I look at this as being that third team in the Coastal, where if it's not North Carolina and Miami winning the division, I would bet on Virginia before anybody else in the division.
I don't really disagree. I think just from looking at the only depth chart I could really find, they have most of their starters back on the offensive line. And I will bet on Virginia this year to have a nice little bounce back year. They were a team that was strongly impacted by COVID, which makes me want to throw out more of their results maybe for 2019 than I would with teams that did not have a lot of COVID issues. The one thing that really stands out to me about Virginia was just the number of explosive plays they allowed on defense. And that is not something that a typical Bronco Mendenhall defense does. And I think a lot of that was like, that's a defense that relies a lot on scheme and communication and creating pressure and knowing who to take, right? And it's a heavy zone blitz team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of coordination required. And I think when you had as many moving parts and parts, coming in and out of the lineup, right, as they did, that led to far too many busts. I mean, I've looked back here. Virginia just does not finish. I mean, they were 108th in rushing explosiveness allowed and 116th in passing explosiveness allowed. Like, that's just not something that Virginia's defenses or that Bronco Mendenhall's defenses ever do, right? Like, that's just, they don't do that. Not normally. Now,
yep.
I mean, they occasionally will allow some bombs, but not to that extent. So I think you could see a real bounce back in terms of explosive play prevention from UVA, and then maybe a little bit better job running the football. And that could lead to a nicer year this year.